of the special military operation, or at least the achievement of its military objectives. Did Donald Trump ever show an intent to comply with a memorandum of understanding that he signed so ostentatiously at the Palace of Versailles, the memorandum of understanding with Iran?
No, not only that, his vice president, J.D. Vance, came out and admitted that it was all a charade, that it was fake, that the United States never had any intent of complying with the MOU. The MOU was simply a mechanism to buy time for the United States to repair the damage done to its ability to wage war by resupplying its depleted stockpiles of long-range strike weaponry and air defense weapons, and also to inject some time so that the global energy market could be stabilized. J.D. Vance admitted this, and it's clear that that's all the United States intended from the MOU. We had no intention whatsoever of complying with any aspect of the MOU. The MOU was always just a mechanism to buy time.
So as we are taping this interview, the Secretary of the Treasury is announcing his so-called economic D-Day. It's basically an expansion of secondary sanctions. You know, the Treasury of the United States of America purporting to punish other countries that do business with Iran. Where is this going to get them? I mean, who are they going to punish? They're not going to punish China. They're not going to punish Russia any more than they're punishing it. Do they think they can talk Chinese banks out of financing Iran industry?
I think the Chinese government's already put forward instructions saying to disregard in totality any aspect of this sanctioning program. I mean, the fact of the matter is the United States Treasury holds no cards. We have no leverages. SWIFT is not what it used to be. So denying people access to SWIFT only pushes people into the BRICS market, and a Chinese financial or banking communication system that's now up and running. Over 100 countries are using it. Thanks to Scott Bessent, maybe all countries will be using it soon. The United States has made itself absolutely irrelevant in the world we live in today. One of the interesting aspects of this D-Day, economic D-Day, is that it has not been coordinated at all with any of America's allies, or what passes for American allies today, which means that if you're the Europeans, understanding that the United States is saying you can't do business with China anymore, it's just simply going to fail. We're going to see Trump reversing course, and, as he always does, in very short order. He might proclaim that he accomplished what he wanted to accomplish. He seems to do that a lot, claiming victory where none exists. But this, as the dude said in the great Lebowski, this aggression will not stand, and it won't.
Wow. Here's the Iranian foreign minister 2 days ago saying this is just the same old bullying that we've heard in the past. Cut number 2, Chris.
It's the same old bullying that we've seen from the hardliners in America. In a sense, it's a repetitive movie. They just keep replaying it. We know it by heart, and we know how to confront and deal with it. The fact that they talk about military operations, saying we will strike, we will do this, we will do that, and now they've returned to bringing up the same old plans again, shows that they are truly desperate. They can't think of any other solution against the great nation of Iran, so they just keep bringing these repetitive plans back to the stage. They must come to understand that there is simply no other viable way forward other than engaging in a dialogue with genuine respect for the people of Iran. It is absolutely essential that we focus on finding a lasting solution that is firmly rooted in the principles of justice and human dignity for everyone involved. They must put all these other paths aside and return to a path that has been tested before. The Iranian nation responds to the language of dignity with respect.
So you have a military stalemate, you have rampant price inflation and fuel shortages in the United States, you have the depletion of United States military gear and ammunition, and you have no diplomacy going on. What has Donald Trump accomplished with this war?
I think when the history of this conflict is finally written, you're going to see that this was literally the straw that broke the back of the American empire. Um, Going into this conflict, there were many analysts who, and I count myself amongst them, who, viewed the United States as an empire that had reached its the height of its capabilities. We could call it the high water mark. But now we were an empire in decline, retrograde. Thanks to Donald Trump, we're an empire in collapse. Um, and there's nothing to shore it up. He's made no effort whatsoever to, to solidify the foundations, to shore up the sides, and he's simply just going along, repeating one bad move after another bad move after another bad move. He's accomplished nothing. Um, you know, he's just made America weak across the board, militarily, diplomatically, economically, and there's no point whatsoever that he can say he's improved the situation of the United States. And so, we are looking at an empire in an accelerated state of collapse. And this is problematic for the American people. I mean, I watched your ad coming in, and people need to understand what it means if gold goes to over 6,000. It means the dollar sucks.
Right.
That means that your paycheck is not going to have the same purchasing power. It may not have any purchasing power, in the near future if this continues. This is a man who cares nothing about the average American. Scott Bessent Bessent's the guy that looked in the camera and said, "Hey, if you want to make more money, just eliminate those tax withholdings, and you'll have more money." And I'm like, "Yeah, but what happens when tax time comes? Are you also telling them that you're going to stop demanding he pay? Because if people eliminate their withholdings, they're going to owe more tax time." I mean, this is the thinking of the elite. They don't care. And Donald Trump and Bessent are people who live in economic bubbles of prosperity that don't touch, that they have no crossover into the daily lives of the average American.
I was speaking earlier today with Robert Barnes, a lawyer. You may know him. He has some extraordinary contacts inside the White House, and from time to time reveals what these contacts tell him. And he told us this morning that on 3 occasions President Trump has asked the Defense Department, why can't he use tactical nuclear weapons? Before we get into the morality and the likely consequences of such use, what is a tactical nuclear weapon?
Well, a tactical nuclear weapon is a low-yield nuclear weapon that is designed to have a limited impact on the battlefield. What I mean by that is that it's used to resolve a tactical or, one could even say operational issue, but not to have strategic impact. So if I'm fighting a battle for, the valley between Hill 861 and Hill 872, and the enemy's broken through, and I don't have a division or so of troops to pour in there and plug the hole, I can use a tactical nuclear weapon into the valley to destroy the enemy's ability to continue their offensive. And it has an immediate impact there, but it doesn't, change the strategic aspect, meaning I haven't destroyed cities or production facilities of that nature. It's a battlefield weapon. It's meant to be a weapon of limited destruction, even though the destruction that it does do where it's been used is, has the potential of being massive.
What would be the consequences of the United States military, and I assume we have these, what would be the consequences of the United States military deploying this in Iran? What would they accomplish, and what would the reaction and response be by other nuclear powers?
Well, let's look at it in a couple ways. I said a while ago, I wrote a book about Iran called Target Iran. It was written during the time of the Bush administration, where I talked about the regime change policies of the Bush administration. And I said that if we use a nuclear weapon against Iran, that we should pick an American city, because it's a guarantee that an Islamic weapon at some point in time will take out a major American city. It's just an absolute 100% guarantee. You're not going to avoid it, ladies and gentlemen. An Islamic bomb will be used to take out an American city. So we need to understand that, but that's the least of our problems. Because if we use a tactical nuclear weapon, the other thing people have to understand is there hasn't been a single Pentagon war game where tactical nuclear weapons were used, ostensibly just to resolve that little tactical problem, where it didn't end with a general nuclear exchange. Once you let the genie out of the bottle, the genie will never go back into the bottle. What I mean by that is, right now we have five, legal nuclear powers under the NPT, and we have a whole bunch of others who aren't part of the NPT. But the consensus is that nuclear war cannot be won, therefore nuclear weapons should never be used. And this is the foundation upon which nuclear deterrence is built. The idea that I have a nuclear weapon, you have a nuclear weapon, nobody wants to use nuclear weapons, so let's not create conditions where nuclear weapons can't be used. If the United States uses nuclear weapons against Iran, what we've done is we've broken that deterrence model, and the balance that has held the world together and prevented the use of nuclear weapons in anger after Hiroshima and Nagasaki will be forever removed. If the United States uses nuclear weapons, we now have become a nation that says nuclear wars can be won, therefore nuclear weapons will be used. And that's a completely different philosophy. Now all those nations that say nuclear wars can't be won, therefore nuclear weapons should never be used, have to readjust, because now they live in a world where the United States has said that they can use nuclear weapons and they expect to prevail militarily when they use them. Which means that in order to reestablish the balance, to put fear in the United States, Russia and China will have to use nuclear weapons to demonstrate that they too are powers who can use nuclear weapons because they believe nuclear wars can't be won. And the question is, where will they use these weapons? And with Russia, the answer is quite clear. It's not going to be Ukraine. People need to understand that Ukraine is a Slavic nation. Russia's not going to nuke Ukraine. They will nuke Europe, gladly. And if the United States attacks Tehran, I can pretty much guarantee that a Russian tactical nuclear weapon will be used against a European target. And that creates a whole host of issues. Will the United States trade Boston for Poznan? Sergei Karagano's timeless question that he first put forward, I think, in 2023. Now with China, this is that China won't use a nuclear weapon against Taiwan. Taiwan is China, ladies and gentlemen. So China's not going to nuke itself. They will nuke Japan in a heartbeat. And so pick a Japanese city, because it will too disappear. And this is what will happen if the United States uses nuclear weapons against Iran. The nuclear genie's out of the bottle, and now in order to establish deterrence, Russia's going to have to nuke Europe, and China's going to have to nuke Japan. Thank you, the United States of America. But understand that it won't end there, because it will just lead to counterstrikes. Next thing you know, it'll be a general nuclear exchange, and we all die. The first time a nuclear weapon's used, it's the end of the world.
All right, let's go back to Russia. Has the Russian military effectively succeeded in destroying border crossings from Romania, Poland, Slovakia, access to the Black Sea? In other words, is the Russian military tightening the noose around Ukraine by making it nearly impossible for Western military gear to make its way into Ukraine?
Not yet. They have cut off the Black Sea ports, and that was one of the main routes to come in, through shipping, disguised as the grain corridor. That's gone. We've talked about the economic consequences. That's 71% of Ukraine's economy, for what it is today, flowed through the Black Sea ports. That's gone. They're down to 29% of economic potential now. That's the death of Ukraine. But Russia has made things difficult. They're starting to target some bridges that provide connectivity from Romania through. Part of Ukraine crosses the Dnieper River, the Don River, I guess, or Danube, and makes it on. So that bridge has been dropped. But there's still, railway coming in. We see all of the European Union's elite gathering in Ukraine today for Independence Day. How did that happen? That train still runs. Why is it allowed to run? A very good question. But the highways still are bringing in the equipment. We saw this from the very beginning. The Ukrainians using their because people are going like, why is Russia hitting the Ukrainian postal service? I mean, that's like not supposed to be, because the postal service is a front for the delivery of military equipment. We've seen from the very beginning of this conflict big white trucks marked with Ukrainian Postal Service markings. When you lift up the tarps inside are armored vehicles, howitzers, ammunition, the whole works. Now we've seen the white trucks that Ukraine uses to move, food and civilian supplies around that have suddenly been exposed to be carrying their mobile launch platforms for their drones, their long-range drones that they strike. We've seen proof of this. Russia is beginning to attack this infrastructure, but as things stand, there is still road and rail connectivity between Ukraine and much of Europe.
What will the Kremlin do about the continued British supply of long-range missiles and drones to Ukraine? I mean, earlier today, Prime Minister Burnham really doubled down on this and said, we will continue to supply, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know exactly what he said, we will continue to supply whatever Ukraine needs, but he said this in the context of long-range weaponry that can reach deep into Russia. What will the Kremlin do about this?
Well, I don't believe they're going to strike Great Britain. Let's just put this in the proper perspective. The only thing that can save Ukraine right now is if Russia strikes NATO and NATO becomes directly involved in this conflict. That's it. And NATO understands that if they become directly involved in the conflict, they will lose. So what they're believing is that if they become directly involved in the conflict, the only thing that will save them is the United States becoming directly involved in the conflict. And so that's the scenario, is to create a condition that will provoke Russia into carrying out a strike, a retaliatory strike by law, but NATO will call it a preemptive strike, an illegal war of aggression against NATO, and challenge the United States to pony up and get involved in this. That's the hope, that's the prayer. Look, what are the British doing? We already know that the British have, for the past 6 months, been providing a more advanced long-range drone that the Ukrainians have used to successfully strike targets deep inside Russia. And so, even though the British newspapers talked about this isn't news to Russia. They've been dealing with this for months, and they don't care. They're shooting them down. They're adjusting to it by destroying Ukraine. Now, what the British are talking about is providing technology transfers to Ukraine to enable Ukraine to produce the Scalp missile, which is also known as Storm Shadow. It's basically the British French cruise missile that has been used from the very beginning. Now they're letting them produce, I believe, the long-range variant of it, which gives Ukraine the ability to strike deeper into Russia. But just because you hand over the ability for Ukraine to produce certain classified aspects of this missile doesn't mean that Ukraine will be able to do so. Russia's in the process of literally destroying the totality of Ukraine's defense industrial capacity. And so that's that. The Scalp is not a magic weapon. Russia's been shooting down Scalp and Storm Shadow on a regular basis. Can one or two leak through and do something? Perhaps. But it's not a game changer. What is a game changer is what Russia's doing to Ukraine on a daily basis. And now we see, in addition to the Russians, stepping up with ballistic missile attacks and drone attacks, they're being reinforced by North Koreans who have already thrown in their Iskander equivalent into striking Ukrainian targets, now brought in a more advanced model with a heavier warhead capable of doing more damage. Ukraine's just setting itself up. This is basic attritional math. Let's just give Ukraine a destruction of probability kill factor of, say, 0.08, meaning that they fire 100 missiles in and maybe less than one will hit its target. That's not doing it. Russia has a probability kill factor of up around 98%, meaning that they fire 198 are going to hit there. And the Russian weapons have far more destructive capability, far more accuracy. So Ukraine is being erased at a rate that's far greater than the damage or harm they're doing to the Russian economy. Whatever harm they're doing is superficial. It's designed to make a lot of smoke. That's why they hit the wild berries and the ozone distribution centers. Yes, you saw a hiccup in the Russian stock market. That won't be permanent, but what is permanent is the damage being done to Ukraine as we speak.
What would be a satisfactory outcome of the special military operation from the Kremlin's perspective?
Unconditional surrender of Ukraine, the total defeat of the Zelensky government, and a recognition by Europe that their experiment failed. And that's the only outcome there will be. I just want to put everybody on notice. There will be no compromise. Russia will not, seek a ceasefire. The more Ukraine and the Keith Kellogg's and the Macrons and the Mertzes and the whatever that Finnish lunatic's name is, Stump. They keep talking about the need to defeat Ukraine. The more they defeat Russia, the more they talk about it, the more dire the consequences are for Ukraine. Now Ukraine's in the process of mobilizing women because they don't have enough men. Yes, you heard me right. So the nation that has allowed, a significant percentage of its, male population to be slaughtered on the field of battle is now ready to sacrifice their women on the field of battle. That's where the West has become. You see the British openly advocating for the mobilization of women. You see Keith Kellogg talking about, women can fight as good as men. Well, we've wrestled with that issue, and we know that that's not the case. I'm not denigrating females in military service. I'm just saying that women will never perform as men do in frontline combat units. And yet now that's the argument that we're making, is that we want Ukraine to sacrifice their women as well. This is literally a war to the last Ukrainian. Sadly, Zelensky seems to be willing to allow that to happen. In Russia, at this juncture, is more than willing to facilitate the desire of Ukraine in the West. They will fight this war to the last Ukrainian. Trust me, Russia's not suffering anywhere near the casualty levels that Ukraine has. They're not suffering anywhere near the economic harm that Ukraine has. They are physically destroying Ukraine. They're eradicating the Ukrainian population, and they're destroying Europe as a viable entity, both in terms of this theoretical unified Europe that everybody thinks exists but doesn't, but also the individual constituent nations are one by one just collapsing economically. Merz had to admit that 300 to 600 jobs are being lost a day in Germany, and that there's no way to turn this around. It's just part of the reality of what they're doing. That's it.
Okay, I want to go back to Iran. We're going to run some clips from Secretary Bessent. This is all very recent. He made these statements while you and I were on air just now. I haven't seen them. Chris has, producer, but I'll be anxious to hear your response. Chris?
Today, at President Trump's direction, the United States Treasury has begun Operation Economic Outcast, an unprecedented campaign against the Islamic Republic of Iran and its enablers. In the Second World War, D-Day marked the historic beginning of a campaign with our allies to target and drive the enemy from its positions, including those in third countries. Today, in that same spirit, we are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe. Our objective is to sever every economic lifeline that sustains this tyrannical regime until Tehran stands alone. Iran's fanatics devote themselves to death to America and seek nuclear weapons to do just that. They have murdered and maimed more of our citizens and service members than any other terrorist regime.
Does he know what he's talking about?
First of all, he probably needs to go back and reread history. D-Day, we actually had Canadians fighting next to us. Hey, Scott, how's Canada looking right now? I don't think they're friendly with America. I just listened to Prime Minister Carney. So we don't have the Canadians with us. We had the British going across Gold Beach. Where are the British today? I don't see them with you there, Scotty baby. The French, we had the Free French Fort. Is France there? Oh, and D-Day couldn't have happened, Scott Bessent, without Operation Bagration, a massive Soviet offensive that tied down over 60% of the German military, preventing the 6 divisions that were earmarked to reinforce Normandy from moving. gee, Scott, you better get your history together, because right now it seems to me that you're going across the beach alone. No one's with you, and no one's going to join you, and no one's afraid of you. This is just bluster. I don't know why they think that they can get up there and say stupidity like this, because it's easily. I just told you, just from a historic, the analogy fails 100%. Fails 100%. Then we get into the substance of what he says. There's nothing there. It's a giant nothing burger. He has no economic tools to accomplish the goals and objectives he set out. This is going to be reversed in less than a week by Donald Trump, who's going to declare victory. Now, all the Chinese have to do is tweak off, was it rare earth minerals, and Trump's going to go, wait a minute, the world will dump U.S. treasuries. They're already in the process. And I'm not a bond expert guy, but I do know this, that if they continue to dump treasuries, we're going to have to raise the interest rates on bonds so much that we can't afford to live. And this is Scott Bessent's side. He just went out and he basically stole all the money from Europe to buy off Japanese yen to prevent the Japanese from dumping bonds. But if he does this, it's over. I mean, what does he think the Chinese are going to do? Sit back and do nothing? The Chinese already said pound sand. No, and if you want to go on the offensive against China, they will rip you apart, Bessent. You've got nothing. Guess who has a whole bunch of oil reserves? China. And guess who doesn't have any oil reserves? America. And guess what will happen when we get into an oil war with China? We lose. And you want to know why we lose? Because we don't control the Strait of Hormuz. We don't control Bab el-Mandeb. And we think we got Venezuela. It's taken forever to get that oil out. Something that's coming out faster. Well, it's not fast enough, ladies and gentlemen. This is literally, the man wrote a suicide pact. He doesn't realize. He thinks it's grandeur. That video clip will be played down the road as one of the more humiliating, self-effacing moments of the Trump administration, because nothing that he said will happen. What will happen is the total collapse of the United States economy because of this. We have no economic strength. We're $40 trillion in debt, ladies and gentlemen, and he's saying that the solution now is to do what? Go out and destroy whatever connectivity we have with the world today. The world is learning to live without us. We can't live without the world. And why? Because Trump made up stupidity about Iran. Death to America, ladies and gentlemen, does not mean death to you, the average American citizen. It doesn't even mean death to the nation of America. But it is a reflection of the frustration that the Iranian people felt during the time of when the Shah fell, because the CIA was working hand in glove with Savak to arrest and torture Iranians. And so when they got to the street, they said, death to America, death to the concept of imperial American domination of Iran. That's what it means. Don't listen to Scott Bessent. And Iran killed more Americans than anybody else? Don't be stupid, Scott. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. What you might be talking about is the fact that Iran facilitated the resistance of the Shia in Iraq, in the Najaf region, and killed, which ended up killing, 600, 700, 800 Americans. That's a lot, guys. But last time I checked, we had illegally invaded and occupied Iraq. It was Iraqis killing us, not anybody else. And we're sitting here helping the Ukrainians kill Russians, and we say that's okay because Russia illegally invaded and occupied Ukraine. Guys, we illegally invaded and occupied Iraq. We were there. We were brutal occupiers, and the Iraqis were resistant, and Iran facilitated that. If you don't understand how that is not the murder of Americans, then leave the room.
Here's one that's even worse.
No.
Let's see. You in the front.
You described this as an economic D-Day, but D-Day wasn't a threat of an invasion, and the U.S. didn't give a timeline to Germany. So why not impose the sanctions today?
Well, we are giving everyone the opportunity to remedy bad behavior. Why would I want to blow up the global financial system? We believe that it is important to level set and give people a cure period, but they should know that will move very quickly and that we are serious. Secondary sanctions are a very powerful tool, and we here at Treasury, this is Gene Lang, the Acting Undersecretary for Terrorism Finance, and in the Terrorism Finance Department and at OFAC, the reason we are able to use secondary sanctions is because we do not take their use lightly. So we believe that a warning shot and a level set of expectations is appropriate. And if people do not want to meet our expectations, then we expect, and they should expect, that will leave the dollar system. Okay? Thank you all.
It's funny. Putin once famously said, it's not Russia that's abandoning the dollar, it's the dollar that's abandoning Russia. And now what Scott Besson just basically said is, it's not the world abandoning the dollar, it's the dollar abandoning the world. If you want to kill the dollar, it was just killed by Scott Besson. And Americans again need to understand what it means when the dollar is no longer viewed as the world's reserve currency. It'll be absolutely devastating to us. When the dollar is delinked from global energy, the end of the petrodollar, that's the end of the American economy. That's the end of everything we have going on here at home. We will be going to buy a loaf of bread with a wheelbarrow full of dollars because the dollar will become worthless. We've been printing money like mad because we've attached it to this notional concept of the petrodollar and the world's reserve currency. We've been basically leveraging our debt off of the potential of multi-trillion-dollar economic world where we provide the economic foundation of stability through the dollar. Scott Besson just killed the United States dollar, killed it, murdered it. Donald Trump needs to reverse this nonsense immediately, or else it's over, ladies and gentlemen. Buy gold now, buy silver now, because I'm telling you right now, if this thing goes the way it's going, and I'm not out here trying to throw your ads out there, I'm just being honest. But let me also be honest too. You know what happens when you hold on to a bunch of gold and the economy goes into free fall? Nobody buys, nobody sells. You sit there and hold on to it. Nobody's going to buy it, nobody's going to sell it because the economy is just too damn unstable. It's a nightmare for everybody. Scott Besson just literally killed the United States economy. Killed it. Murdered.
I want to play one more for you before we finish. This is shorter than the other two, also in the past 15, 20 minutes.
Those who enable Tehran do not discount the cost of testing Washington's resolve. No nation should expect to enjoy the rewards of our system while helping those who seek to destroy it. It is now a time for world leaders to make a decision between prosperity and isolation, peace and terror, America and Iran. The campaign we begin today will gather force with every day that follows, and it will not end until this regime stands alone.
This reminds me of one of those Hollywood movies where it's like prom, and you got the prom queen out there, and she's convinced she's the most beautiful little prom queen in the world, and she's convinced the entire student body is going to rally to her cause because she's so damn beautiful. And the ugly duckling princess comes out, and the whole school around her, and the prom queen standing low. Besson, you'll be standing by yourself. The world will reject you. I'm telling you right now, the world stands with winners. Iran is a winner. You, my friend, are a loser. You're the Secretary of Treasury of a nation that got their ass handed to them by Iran on the field of battle. A nation that's getting their ass handed to them by Iran in the economic world. Scott, if you could open up the Strait of Hormuz, you might have a snowball's chance in hell of being able to leverage American power. But you can't do that. You can't do anything. You can't even, the proof that you can't do it is that you're not doing it. I mean, again, one of those Hollywood movies. I mean, see, Bruce Willis, Die Hard. Dude's on top of the table talking to him, and Bruce starts shooting him. It says more shooting, less talking. Hey, Scott, you're talking. You're not shooting, and you don't have any bullets in the gun. It's just stupidity. I mean, as an American, I'm furious by this because we will be standing alone. No one will be standing with us. No one will be standing with us by the time this is done.
Scott Ritter, you are on fire. God bless you. We went on a little longer than I thought, but we couldn't resist running those for you. Thank you, my dear friend. Thanks for your analysis. Thanks for your passion. You're 100% on the mark. We'll see where this goes next. Maybe we'll see at the end of the week on the roundtable if you're around on Friday afternoon. Thank you, Scotty.
Okay, thanks.